Hello, I'm late. Apologies. Had to turn off my AC because it was making a lot of background noise despite my setup. It's another hot one today, baby. So we're gonna do our best and do what we can from beneath my very thick blanket booth. Wish me luck. All right, we'll get started in like a minute and a half. Alright, let's get to it. This is Sjambak, Part 2. This is the gravy train, said Murphy. Instead of a garden suite with a private pool, I usually sleep in a bubble tent, with nothing to eat but condensed food. Sjambak flung the water out of her sleek black hair. Perhaps, Wilbur, you will regret leaving Cirgamesç? Well, he looked up at the transparent roof, barely visible where the sunlight collected and refracted. I don't particularly like being shut up like a bird in an aviary. Mildly claustrophobic, I guess. After breakfast, drinking thick coffee from tiny silver cups, Murphy looked long and reflectively at Sjambak. What are you thinking, Wilbur? Murphy drained his coffee. I'm thinking that I'd better be getting to work. And what do you do? First, I'm going to shoot the palace, and you sitting here in the garden playing your gamelan. But Wilbur, not me. You're part of the universe, rather an interesting part. And then I'll take the square. And the Sjambak. A quiet voice spoke from behind. A visitor, Tuan Murphy? Murphy turned his head. Bring him in. He looked back to Sjambak. She was on her feet. It is necessary that I go. When will I see you? Tonight, at the Barangipan. The quiet voice said, Mr. Rube Trimmer, Tuan. Trimmer was small and middle-aged, with thin shoulders and a paunch. He carried himself with a hell-raising swagger, left over from a time 20 years gone. His skin had the waxy look of lost floridity, his tuft of white hair was coarse and thin, his eyelids hung in the offside droop that amateur physiognomists like to associate with guile. I'm resident director of the Import-Export Bank, said Trimmer. Heard you were here and thought I'd pay my respects. I suppose you don't see many strangers. Not too many. There's nothing much to bring 'em. Cirgamesç isn't a comfortable tourist planet, too confined, too shut in. A man with a sensitive psyche goes nuts pretty easy here. Yeah, said Murphy. I was thinking the same thing this morning. That dome begins to give a man the willies. How do the natives stand it? Or do they? Trimmer pulled out a cigar case. Murphy refused the offer. Local tobacco, said Trimmer. Very good. He lit up thoughtfully. Well, you might say that the Cirgamesç are schizophrenic. They've got the docile Javanese blood plus the Arabian elan. The Javanese part is on top, but every once in a while you see a flash of arrogance. You never know. I've been out here 9 years and I'm still a stranger. He puffed on his cigar and studied Murphy with his careful eyes. You work for Know Your Universe, I hear. Yeah, I'm one of the legmen. Must be a great job. A man sees a lot of the galaxy, and he runs into queer tales, like this Sjambak stuff. Trimmer nodded without surprise. My advice to you, Murphy, is to lay off the Sjambaks. They're not healthy around here. Murphy was startled by the bluntness. What's the big mystery about these Sjambaks? Trimmer looked around the room. This place is bugged. I found 2 pickups and plugged them, said Murphy. Trimmer laughed. Those were just plants. They hide them where a man might just barely spot them. You can't catch the real ones. They're woven into the cloth, pressure-sensitive wires. Murphy looked critically at the cloth walls. Don't let it worry you, said Trimmer. And they listen more out of habit than anything else. If you're fussy, we'll go for a walk. The road led past the palace into the country. Murphy and Trimmer sauntered along a placid river overgrown with lily pads, swarming with large white ducks. This Sjambak business, said Murphy. Everybody talks around it. You can't pin anybody down. Including me, said Trimmer. I'm more or less privileged around here. The Sultan finances his reclamation through the bank on the basis of my reports. But there's more to Sinkalut than the Sultan. Namely? Trimmer waved his cigar waggishly. Now we're getting in where I don't like to talk. I'll give you a hint. Prince Ali thinks roofing in more valleys is a waste of money when there's Hadra and New Batavia and Sundaman so close. You mean armed conquest? Trimmer laughed. You said it, not me. They can't carry on much of a war unless the soldiers commute by monorail. Maybe Prince Ali thinks he's got the answer. Sjambaks? I didn't say it, said Trimmer blandly. Murphy grinned. After a moment, he said, I picked up with a girl named Sok Panjobong who plays the gamelan. I suppose she's working for either the Sultan or Prince Ali. And do you know which? Trimmer's eyes sparkled. He shook his head. Might be either one. There's a way to find out. Yeah? Get her off where you're sure there's no spy cells. Tell her 2 things. One for Ali, the other for the Sultan. Whichever one reacts, you know you've got her tagged. For instance? Well, for instance, she learns you can rig up a hypnotic ray from a flashlight battery, a piece of bamboo, and a few lengths of wire. That'll get Ali in an awful sweat. He can't get weapons, none at all. And for the Sultan, Trimmer was warming up to his intrigue, chewing on his cigar with gusto. Tell her you're on to a catalyst that turns clay into aluminum and oxygen in the presence of sunlight. The Sultan would sell his right leg for something like that. He tries hard for Singalut and Cirgamesç. And Ali? Trimmer hesitated. I never said what I'm gonna say. Don't forget, I never said it. Okay, you never said it. Ever heard of, jihad? Mohammedan holy wars? Believe it or not, Ali wants a jihad. Sounds kind of fantastic. Sure, it's fantastic. And don't forget, I never said anything about it. But suppose someone, strictly unofficial of course, let the idea percolate around the peace office back home. Ah, said Murphy. That's why you came to see me. Trimmer turned a look of injured innocence. Now, Murphy, you're a little unfair. I'm a friendly guy. Of course I don't like to see the bank lose what we've got tied up in the Sultan. Why don't you send in a report yourself? I have, but when they hear the same thing from you, a know your universe man, they might make a move. Murphy nodded. Well, we understand each other, said Trimmer heartily, and everything is clear. Not entirely. How's Ali going to launch a jihad when he doesn't have any weapons, no warships, no supplies? Now, said Trimmer, we're getting into the realm of supposition. He paused, looked behind him. A farmer pushing a rotary tiller bowed politely and trundled ahead. Behind was a young man in a black turban, gold earrings, a black and red vest, white pantaloons, black curl-toed slippers. He bowed, started past. Trimmer held up his hand. Don't waste your time up there. We're going back in a few minutes. Thank you, Tuan. Who are you reporting to, the Sultan or Prince Ali? The Tuan is sure to pierce the veil of my evasions. I shall not dissemble. I am the Sultan's man. Trimmer nodded. Now, if you'll kindly remove to about 100 yards where your whisper pickup won't work. And by your leave, I go. He retreated without haste. He's almost certainly working for Ali, said Trimmer. Not a very subtle lie. Oh yes, 3rd level. He figured I'd take it to 2nd level. How's that again? Oh, naturally I wouldn't believe him. He knew I knew that he knew. So when he said Sultan, I'd think he wouldn't lie simply, but that he'd lie double, that he actually was working for the Sultan. Murphy laughed. Suppose he told you a 4th level lie. Well, it starts to be a toss-up pretty soon, Trimmer admitted. I don't think he gives me credit for that much subtlety. What are you doing for the rest of the day? Taking footage. Do you know where I can find some picturesque rites? Mystical dances, human sacrifice? I've got to work up some glamour and exotic lore. There's this Sjambak in the cage, and that's about as close to the medieval as you'll find anywhere in Earth Commonwealth. Speaking of Sjambaks... No time, said Trimmer. Got to get back. Drop in at my office, right down the square from the palace. Murphy returned to his suite. The shadowy figure of his room servant said, His Highness the Sultan desires the Tuan's attendance in the Cascade Garden. Thank you, said Murphy, as soon as I load my camera. The Cascade Room was an open patio in front of an artificial waterfall. The Sultan was pacing back and forth, wearing dusty khaki puttees, brown plastic boots, a yellow polo shirt. He carried a twig, which he used as a riding crop, slapping his boots as he walked. He turned his head as Murphy appeared, pointed his twig at a wicker bench. I pray you sit down, Mr. Murphy. He paced once back. He paced once up and back. How is your suite? You find it to your liking? Very much so. Excellent, said the Sultan. You do me honor with your presence. Murphy waited patiently. I understand that you had a visitor this morning, said the Sultan. Yes, Mr. Trimmer. May I inquire the nature of the conversation? It was of a personal nature, said Murphy, rather more shortly than he meant. The Sultan nodded wistfully. A Sinkalusi would have wasted an hour telling me half-truths, distorted enough to confuse, but not sufficiently inaccurate to anger me if I had a spy cell on him all the time. Murphy grinned. A single Lucy has to live here for the rest of his life. A servant wheeled a frosted cabinet before them, placed goblets under 2 spigots, withdrew. The Sultan cleared his throat. Trimmer is an excellent fellow, but unbelievably loquacious. Murphy drew himself 2 inches of chilled rosy pale liquor. The Sultan slapped his boots with the twig. Undoubtedly, he confided all my private business to you, or at least as much as I have allowed him to learn. Well, he spoke of your hope to increase the compass of Singalut. That, my friend, is no hope. It's absolute necessity. Our population density is 1,500 to the square mile. We must expand or smother. There will be too little food to eat, too little oxygen to breathe. Murphy suddenly came to life. I could make that idea the theme of my feature. Singalut dilemma, expand or perish. No, that would be inadvisable, inapplicable. Murphy was not convinced. It sounds like a natural. The Sultan smiled. I'll impart an item of confidential information, although Trimmer no doubt has preceded me with it. He gave his boots an irritated whack. To expand, I need funds. Funds are best secured in an atmosphere of calm and confidence. The implication of emergency would be disastrous to my aims. Well, said Murphy, I see your position. The Sultan glanced at Murphy sidelong. Oh, sorry, I lost my spot, to be honest. Anticipating your cooperation, my Minister of Propaganda has arranged an hour's program stressing our progressive social attitude, our prosperity, and financial prospects. But, Sultan, well, I can't allow your Minister of Propaganda to use me and Know Your Universe as a kind of investment brochure. The Sultan nodded wearily. I expected you to take that attitude. Well, what do you yourself have in mind? I've been looking for something to tie to, said Murphy. I think it's going to be the dramatic contrast between the ruined cities and the new domed valleys, how the Earth settlers succeeded where the ancient people failed to meet the challenge of the dissipating atmosphere. Well, the Sultan said grudgingly, that's not too bad. Today, I want to take some shots of the palace, the dome, the city, the paddies, groves, orchards, farms. And tomorrow, I'm taking a trip out to one of the ruins. I see, said the Sultan. Then you won't need my charts and statistics. Well, Sultan, I could film the stuff your propaganda minister cooked up, and I could take it back to Earth. Howard Freyberg or Sam Catlin would tear into it, rip it apart, lard in some headhunting, a little cannibalism and temple prostitution, and you'd never know you were watching Singalut. You'd scream with horror, and I'd be fired. In that case, said the Sultan, I will leave you to the dictates of your conscience. Short page break here. I could use some water. Okay. Howard Freyberg looked around the gray landscape of Riker's planet, gazed out over the roaring black Mogador Ocean. Sam, I think there's a story out there. Sam Catlin shivered inside his electrically heated glass overcoat. Out on that ocean? It's full of man-eating plesiosaurs. Horrible things, 40 feet long. Suppose we work something out on the line of Moby Dick, the white monster of the Mogador Ocean. We'd set sail in a catamaran. Us? No, said Freyberg impatiently. Of course not us. 2 or 3 of the staff. They'd sail out there, look over these gray and red monsters, maybe fake a fight or 2. But all the time, they're after the legendary white one. How's it sound? I don't think we pay our men enough money. Wilbur Murphy might do it. He's willing to look for a man riding a horse up to meet spaceships. He might draw the line at a white plesiosaur riding up to meet his catamaran. Freyberg turned away. Somebody's got to have ideas around here. We'd better head back to the spaceport, said Catelyn. We've got 2 hours to make the Cirgamesç shuttle. Wilbur Murphy sat in the Baranjapan, watching marionettes performing to xylophone, castanet, gong, and gamelan. The drama had its roots in proto-historic Mohenjo-Daro. It had filtered down through ancient India, medieval Burma, Malaya, across the straits of Malacca to Sumatra and Java, from modern Java across space to Cirgamesç, 5,000 years of time, 200 light-years of space. Somewhere along the route, it had met and assimilated modern technology. Magnetic beams controlled arms, legs, and bodies, guided the poses and posturings. The manipulator's face, by agency of clip, wire, radio control, and minuscule celicin, projected his scowl, smile, sneer, or grimace to the peaked little face he controlled. The language was that of old Java, which perhaps a third of the spectators understood. This portion did not include Murphy, and when the performance ended, he was no wiser than at the start. Sok Panjabang slipped into the seat beside Murphy. She wore musician's garb, a sarong of brown, blue, and black batik, and a fantastic headdress of tiny silver bells. She greeted him with enthusiasm. "Wilbur, I saw you watching." "It was very interesting." "Ah, yes," she sighed. "Wilbur, you take me with you back to Earth? You make me a great picturama star? Please, Wilbur." "Well, I don't know about that." "I behave very well, Wilbur." She nuzzled his shoulder, looked soulfully up with her shiny yellow hazel eyes. Murphy nearly forgot the experiment he intended to perform. "What did you do today, Wilbur? You looked at all the pretty girls?" "Nope, I ran footage. Got the palace, climbed the ridge up to the condensation veins. I never knew there was so much water in the air till I saw the stream pouring off those veins, and hot." "We have much sunlight. It makes the rice grow." "The Sultan ought to put some of that excess light to work. There's a secret process. Well, I'd better not say." "Oh, come, Wilbur, tell me your secrets." "It's not much of a secret, just a catalyst that separates clay into aluminum and oxygen when sunlight shines on it." Sok's eyebrows rose, poised in place like a seagull riding the wind. "Wilbur, I did not know you for a man of learning." "Oh, you thought I was just a bum, eh? Good enough to make picturama stars out of gamelan players, but no special genius." No, Wilbur. "I know lots of tricks. I can take a flashlight battery, a piece of copper foil, a few transistors, and bamboo tube, and turn out a paralyzer gun that'll stop a man cold in his tracks. And you know how much it costs?" "No, Wilbur. How much?" 10 cents. It wears out after 2 or 3 months, but what's the difference? I make 'em as a hobby, turn out 2 or 3 an hour." "Wilbur, you're a man of marvels. Hello, we will drink." And Murphy settled back in the wicker chair, sipping his rice beer. "Today," said Murphy, "I get into a spacesuit and ride out to the ruins in the plain. Gautamapal, I think they're called. Like to come?" "No, Wilbur." Sok Panjabang looked off into the garden, her hands busy tucking a flower into her hair. A few minutes later, she said, "Why must you waste your time among the rocks? There are better things to do and see, and it might well be dangerous." She murmured the last word offhandedly. "Danger? From the Sjambaks?" "Yes, perhaps." "The Sultan's giving me a guard. 20 men with crossbows." "The Sjambaks carry shields." "Why should they risk their lives attacking me?" Sok Panjabang shrugged. After a moment, she rose to her feet. "Goodbye, Wilbur." "Goodbye? Isn't this rather abrupt? Won't I see you tonight?" "If so be Allah's will." Murphy looked after the lithe, swaying figure. She paused, plucked a yellow flower, looked over her shoulder. Her eyes, yellow as the flower, lucent as water jewels, held his. Her face was utterly expressionless. She turned, tossed away the flower with a jaunty gesture, and continued, her shoulders swinging. Murphy breathed deeply. She might have made a picturama at that. 1 hour later, he met his escort at the valley gate. They were dressed in spacesuits for the planes, 20 men with sullen faces. The trip to Katamapal clearly was not to their liking. Murphy climbed into his own suit, checked the oxygen pressure gauge, the seal at his collar. "All ready, boys?" No one spoke. The silence drew out. The gatekeeper, on hand to let the party out, snickered. "They're all ready, Tuan." "Well," said Murphy, "let's go then." Outside the gate, Murphy made a second check of his equipment. No leaks in his suit. Inside pressure, 14.6. 6 even. Outside pressure, 0. His 20 guards morosely inspected their crossbows and slim swords. The white ruins of Katamapal lay 5 miles across Farasang Plain. The horizon was clear, the sun was high, the sky was black. Murphy's radio hummed. Someone said, sharply, "Look! There it goes!" He wheeled around. His guards had halted and were pointing. He saw a fleet, something, vanishing into the distance. "Let's go," said Murphy. "There's nothing out there." "Sjambak!" "Well, there's only one of them. Where one walks, others follow. That's why the 20 of you are here. It is madness, challenging the Sjambaks." "What is gained?" another argued. "I'll be the judge of that," said Murphy, and set off along the plain. The warriors reluctantly followed, muttering to each other over their radio intercoms. Page break here, and I could use a brief break myself to get some air. It's hot as hell in here. Give me like a minute, and I'll be right back. Okay. The eroded city walls rose above them, occupied more and more of the sky. The platoon leader said in an angry voice, "We've gone far enough." "You're under my orders," said Murphy. "We're going through the gate." He punched the button on his camera and passed under the monstrous portal. The city was frailer stuff than the wall, and had succumbed to the thin storms which had raged millions of years after the passing of life. Murphy marveled at the scope of the ruins. Virgin archaeological territory. No telling what a few weeks digging might turn up. Murphy considered his expense account. Shifkin was the obstacle. There'd be tremendous prestige and publicity for Know Your Universe if Murphy uncovered a tomb, a library, works of art. The Sultan would gladly provide diggers. They were a sturdy enough people. They could make quite a showing in a week if they were able to put aside their superstitions, fears, and dreads. Murphy sized one of them up from the corner of his eye. He sat on a sunny slab of rock, and if he felt uneasy, he concealed it quite successfully. In fact, thought Murphy, he appeared completely relaxed. Maybe the problem of securing diggers was a minor one after all. And here was an odd sidelight on the Singhalusi character. Once clear of the valley, the man openly wore his shirt, a fine loose garment of electric blue, in defiance of the Sultan's edict. Of course, out here, he might be cold. Murphy felt his own skin crawling. How could he be cold? How could he be alive? Where was his spacesuit? He lounged on the rock, grinning sardonically at Murphy. He wore heavy sandals, a black turban, loose breeches, the blue shirt. Nothing more. Where were the others? Murphy turned a feverish glance over his shoulder. A good 3 miles distant, bounding and leaping towards Singalut were 20 desperate figures. They all wore spacesuits. This man, here, a Sjambak? A wizard? A hallucination? The creature rose to his feet, strode springily toward Murphy. He carried a crossbow and a sword, like those of Murphy's fleet-footed guards, but he wore no spacesuit. Could there be breathable traces of an atmosphere? Murphy glanced at his gauge. Outside pressure, 0. 2 other men appeared, moving with long, elastic steps. Their eyes were bright, their faces flushed. They came up to Murphy, took his arm. They were solid, corporeal. They had no invisible force fields around their heads. Murphy jerked his arm free. "Let go of me, damn it!" But they certainly couldn't hear him through the vacuum. He glanced over his shoulder. The first man held his naked blade a foot or 2 behind Murphy's bulging spacesuit. Murphy made no further resistance. He punched the button on his camera to automatic. It would now run for several hours, recording 100 pictures per second, 1,000 to the inch. Sjambak led Murphy 200 yards to a metal door. They opened it, pushed Murphy inside, banged it shut. Murphy felt the vibration through his shoes, heard a gradually waxing hum. His gauge showed an outside pressure of 5, 10, 12, 14, 14.5. An inner door opened. Hands pulled Murphy in, unclamped his dome. "Just what's going on here?" demanded Murphy, angrily. Prince Ali Tomas pointed to a table. Murphy saw a flashlight battery, aluminum foil, wire, a transistor kit, metal tubing, tools, a few other odds and ends. "There it is," said Prince Ali Tomas. "Get to work. Let's see one of these paralysis weapons you boast of." "Just like that, eh?" "Just like that." "What do you want 'em for?" "Does it matter?" "I'd like to know." Murphy was conscious of his camera, recording sight, sound, odor. "I lead an army," said Ali Tomas, "but they march without weapons. Give me weapons. I will carry the word to Hadra, to New Batavia, to Sundaman, to Boang Bohat." "How? Why?" "It is enough that I will it. Again, I beg of you." He indicated the table. Murphy laughed. "I've got myself in a fine mess. Suppose I don't make this weapon for you?" "You'll remain until you do, under increasingly difficult conditions." "I'll be here a long time." "If such is the case," said Ali Tomas, "we must make our arrangements for your care on a long-term basis." Ali made a gesture. Hands seized Murphy's shoulders. A respirator was held to his nostrils. He thought of his camera, and he could have laughed. Mystery, excitement, thrills, dramatic sequence for Know Your Universe. Staff man murdered by fanatics. The crime recorded on his own camera. See the blood, hear his death rattle, smell the poison. The vapor choked him. What a break! What a sequence! "Cirgamesç," said Howard Freyberg. "Bigger and brighter every minute." "It must have been just about in here," said Catlin, "that Wilbur's horseback rider appeared." "Ah, that's right. Steward." "Yes, sir." "We're about 20,000 miles out, aren't we?" "About 15,000, sir." "Side reel cavalry. What an idea. I wonder how Wilbur's making out on his superstition angle." Sam Catlin, watching out the window, said in a tight voice, "Why not ask him yourself?" "Eh?" "Ask him for yourself. There he is outside, riding some kind of critter." "It's a ghost," whispered Freyberg. "A man without a spacesuit. There's no such thing." "He sees us. Look." Murphy was staring at them, and his surprise seemed to equal their own. He waved his hand. Catlin gingerly waved back. Said Freyberg, "That's not a horse he's riding. It's a combination ramjet and kiddie car with stirrups." "He's coming aboard the ship," said Catlin. "That's the entrance port down there." Wilbur Murphy sat in the captain's stateroom, taking careful breaths of air. "How are you now?" asked Freyberg. "Fine. A little sore in the lungs." "I shouldn't wonder," the ship's doctor growled. "I never saw anything like it." "How does it feel out there, Wilbur?" Catlin asked. "It feels awful lonesome and empty. And the breath seeping up out of your lungs, never going in, that's a funny feeling. And you miss the air blowing on your skin. I never realized it before. Air feels like silk, like whipped cream. It's got texture." "But aren't you cold? Space is supposed to be absolute zero." "Space is nothing. It's not hot and it's not cold. When you're in the sunlight, you get warm. It's better in the shade. You don't lose any heat by air convection, but radiation and sweat evaporation keeps you comfortably cool." "I still can't understand it," said Freyberg. "This Prince Ali, he's a kind of rebel, eh?" "I don't blame him, in a way. A normal man living under those domes has to let off steam somehow. Prince Ali decided to go out crusading. I think he would have made it, too, at least on Cirgamesç." "Certainly, there are many more men inside the domes." "When it comes to fighting," said Murphy, "a Sjambak can lick 20 men in spacesuits. A little nick doesn't hurt him, but a little nick bursts open a spacesuit, and the man inside comes apart." "Well," said the captain, "I imagine the peace office will send out a team to put things in order now." Catlin asked, "What happened when you woke up from the chloroform?" "Well, nothing very much. I felt this attachment on my chest, but didn't think much about it. Still kind of woozy. I was halfway through decompression. They keep a man there 8 hours, drop pressure on him 2 pounds an hour, nice and slow, so he doesn't get the bends." "Was this the same place they took you when you met Ali?" "Yeah, that was their decompression chamber. They had to make a Sjambak out of me. There wasn't anywhere else they could keep me. Well, pretty soon my head cleared and I saw this apparatus stuck to my chest." He poked at the mechanism on the table. "I saw the oxygen tank. I saw the blood running through the plastic pipes, blue from me to that carburetor arrangement, red on the way back in, and I figured out the whole arrangement. Carbon dioxide still exhales up through your lungs, but the vein back to the left auricle is routed through the carburetor and supercharged with oxygen. A man doesn't need to breathe. The carburetor flushes his blood with oxygen. The decompression tank adjusts him to the lack of air pressure. There's only one thing to look out for. That's not to touch anything with your naked flesh. If it's in the sunshine, it's blazing hot. If it's in the shade, it's cold enough to cut. Otherwise, you're free as a bird." "But how did you get away?" "I saw those little rocket bikes and began figuring. I couldn't go back to Singalut. I'd be lynched on sight as a Sjambak. I couldn't fly to another planet. The bikes don't carry enough fuel. I knew when the ship would be coming in, so I figured I'd fly up to meet it. I told the guard I was going outside a minute, and I got on one of the rocket bikes. There was nothing much to it." "Well," said Freyberg, "it's a great feature, Wilbur. A great film. Maybe we can stretch it into 2 hours." "There's one thing bothering me," said Catlin. "Who did the steward see up here the first time?" Murphy shrugged. "It might have been somebody up here skylarking. A little too much oxygen, and you start cutting all kinds of capers. Or it might have been someone who decided he had enough crusading. There's a Sjambak in a cage right in the middle of Singalut. Prince Ali walks past. They look at each other eye to eye. Ali smiles a little and walks on. Suppose this Sjambak tried to escape to the ship. He's taken aboard, turned over to the Sultan, and the Sultan makes an example of him. What'll the Sultan do to Ali?" Murphy shook his head. "If I were Ali, I'd disappear." A loudspeaker turned on. "Attention, all passengers. We have just passed through quarantine. Passengers may now disembark. Important! No weapons or explosives allowed on Singalut." "This is where I came in," said Murphy. That's the end. Man, I wish there was more Jack Vance out here in the public domain. He's so fun when it comes to writing about like cultures and rights and politics and behaviors, and I don't know. He's just so fun to read. What a pity I had to take him down. Cannot stress this enough. If you enjoyed this story at all in any way, shape, or form, go read more Jack Vance. This is one of his very early pieces of writing, and everything else is just better from here on out. Not that I think this is bad. I think this is a good entry point, actually. But go check out more of his work. The sci-fi, the fantasy, either one. He's also got some mystery thrillers, detective novels, fiction, but not fantasy, that I think he might have written under Emery Queen, maybe? I can't remember. But anyway, check him out. And as always, thanks to Aindulmedir for letting us use his tunes. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you have a good rest of the week. And if you feel like shooting me an email or leaving a comment, go nuts. You can email me at the same username at gmail.com. And yeah, look forward to hearing from you. All right, folks, take it easy and have a good one.